Picture this. You're strolling down a muddy medieval street, dodging pigs, keeping an eye out for knights, and, wait, ducking under a baker's suspicious glare. Welcome to a world where the rules were as strange as the people who made them. Today on History Oddities, we're diving into the 10 weirdest medieval laws you won't believe. Prepare to be amazed, bemused, and maybe a little bewildered by the wild and wacky world of medieval justice. Let's jump right in, before the bell tolls and the curfew catches us. Let's start with law number 1, trials of animals. Yes, you heard that right. Animals on trial. If you think your pet has ever caused trouble, imagine living in medieval France, where pigs, goats, and even insects were dragged before the courts. Pigs, being notorious for wandering into markets and snacking on unattended goods, or worse, nibbling on children, were often charged with crimes like theft or murder. Picture a pig standing in the dock, oinking its defense as a solemn judge listens. And it wasn't just pigs. In 1474, the city of Basel, Switzerland, put a rooster on trial for laying an egg. The crime? Witchcraft, obviously. As for insects, courts sometimes summoned swarms of locusts or rats, commanding them to leave town or face excommunication. The real question is, did the rats read the summons? Medieval justice, as you'll see, didn't discriminate. If you caused trouble, you'd better be ready to face the judge, fur, feathers, or 6 legs included. Moving on to law number 2, sumptuary laws. Imagine if the fashion police were real, and they had the power to arrest you for wearing velvet. That was the reality in medieval Europe, where rulers were obsessed with keeping social order, right down to your wardrobe. Sumptuary laws dictated who could wear what, reserving luxurious fabrics, extravagant colors, and fancy accessories for nobility. Commoners were forbidden from donning silk, pearls, or even certain shades of purple. These laws weren't just about fashion, they were about power. The logic? If everyone looked equally fabulous, how would you know who to bow to? So, next time you put on your favorite sweater, remember, in medieval times, that might have been a crime. And if you fancied a jaunty feather in your cap, beware, the king's tailor was watching. On to law number 3, laws limiting feasts and banning commoners from eating certain foods. The Middle Ages were all about keeping people in their place, especially at the dinner table. Feasting was strictly regulated, with laws limiting how much and what you could eat. If you were a peasant, forget about roast beef or fine cheese. Those were reserved for the privileged. In England, the Statute of Diets of 1363 declared that laborers and their families could only have 1 meat dish per meal, and absolutely no swan, pheasant, or venison. Some places even banned commoners from owning hunting dogs, lest they get ideas about poaching a royal deer. So, if you were caught with a suspiciously tasty cut of meat, you might find yourself in hot water, or worse, eating nothing but bland porridge the rest of your life. Medieval dining. Less bon appetit, more don't get caught. Now let's ring in law number 4, curfew laws. When night fell in medieval towns, the local bell tolled, and everyone was expected to scurry indoors. These curfews were serious business. Being caught outside after hours could lead to fines, imprisonment, or worse. The curfew bell was like a medieval alarm clock, but instead of waking you up, it sent you to bed. The reason? Safety, mostly. Darkness brought thieves, mischief, and the occasional rampaging pig. See law number 1. Some towns even required candles to be snuffed out, for fear of fires. So, if you had a sudden craving for midnight cheese, too bad. You'd better stay under your sheepskin covers until morning. Today, breaking curfew means missing out on dessert. Back then, you risked meeting the town constable and maybe sharing a cell with a felonious goat. Time for law number 5, trial by bread. If you thought medieval justice was all about swords and armor, think again. Sometimes it was about bread. In parts of Europe, accused criminals were handed a chunk of holy bread, blessed by the priest. The test was simple: carry the bread around the church without dropping it. If you managed to keep your grip, you were declared innocent. If not, guilty. The reasoning? Divine intervention would surely trip up a liar. One can only imagine the sweaty palms, desperate prayers, and careful tiptoeing around the altar. Did anyone ever try to glue the bread to their hand? We may never know. But in a world where your fate depended on a loaf, you'd hope for fresh, sturdy bread, not a crumbly baguette. Let's pucker up for law number 6. Public kissing bans in Italian cities. Romance in medieval Italy was apparently a risky business. Certain cities, like Venice and Florence, enacted laws banning public displays of affection. The reason? To curb immorality and maintain public decorum. Kissing in public could land you a hefty fine, or even a stint in the stocks. Imagine sneaking a kiss behind a column, hoping the town watch wasn't lurking nearby. The rules were especially strict during times of plague, when authorities feared that smooching might spread disease. So, if you wanted to woo your sweetheart, better stick to love letters, or risk a very awkward conversation with the local magistrate. These days, PDA gets you some side-eye. In medieval Italy, it could get you a public shaming. Bite into law number 7, bakers punished for selling underweight bread. Medieval people took their bread seriously. So seriously, in fact, that selling a loaf that was too light was a punishable offense. In England, the assize of bread and ale required bakers to provide a fair weight of bread. Inspectors checked the loaves, and if a baker cheated, they could be fined, put in the stocks, or forced to parade through town with their bad bread around their neck. Some towns even had a special punishment called the pillory, where the guilty baker's head and hands were locked in a wooden frame while locals hurled stale rolls at them. Imagine getting pelted with yesterday's baguette just for skimping on the flour. It's a wonder anyone dared bake at all. So next time you feel cheated by a small sandwich, remember, in medieval times, justice was served with a side of bread. Sharpen your sword for law number 8, trial by combat. When all else failed, medieval courts sometimes decided cases with a duel. The logic? Surely God would allow the righteous to win. Disputes over land, honor, or even criminal charges could end with a showdown in the town square. Combatants might use swords, clubs, or, in one German case, bags filled with sand. Both sides fought until one gave up, was incapacitated, or, in some cases, died. The winner was declared innocent, and the loser, well, usually didn't need to worry about legal consequences anymore. Trial by combat was sometimes open to women, who could demand a duel by proxy or, if especially brave, take up arms themselves. So, next time you argue over who gets the remote control, be glad it doesn't end with a duel at dawn. Turning to law number 9, religious food restrictions. Medieval life was a tapestry of feasts and fasts, dictated not just by the calendar, but by the church. Laws set strict rules on when to eat fish or abstain from certain foods. Fridays in Lent were notorious for banning meat, with fish becoming the go-to dish. Some monasteries took this to extremes, classifying beavers as fish, just to enjoy a little variety. Failure to follow these rules could lead to fines, penance, or social disgrace. The result? Medieval kitchens became creative, inventing dishes like mock goose made from peas. So if you were caught munching on a forbidden sausage, expect a visit from the local priest, or perhaps a stern talking to from your mother. Medieval dieting. Less miracle cleanse, more eat fish or else. Finally, let's seal the deal with law number 10, swearing oaths in court. Medieval courts didn't always rely on evidence. Sometimes reputation was everything. If accused of a crime, you could swear an oath declaring your innocence. But there was a catch. You needed a group of neighbors, known as oath helpers, to vouch for your honesty. If they agreed, you walked free. If not, things got complicated. It was justice by popularity contest, where your fate rested on how well you'd gotten along at last year's harvest festival. Imagine the pressure. One grumpy neighbor could mean the difference between freedom and a stint in the stocks. It's like trial by jury, but with more gossip and fewer lawyers. So what have we learned from these 10 weirdest medieval laws? The Middle Ages were a wild ride, equal parts bizarre, strict, and surprisingly creative. Whether you were a pig on trial, a baker with a light loaf, or a lovesick Venetian dodging the kissing police. There was a law for almost every imaginable situation. Some laws seem laughable today, but they reveal a world obsessed with order, hierarchy, and a healthy dose of superstition. Next time someone complains about modern rules, just remind them. At least they don't have to worry about dropping bread in court or fighting a duel to prove their innocence. Thanks for joining us on this whirlwind tour through history's strangest laws. If you enjoyed these oddities, remember to share with a friend. Preferably not during curfew, and definitely not with underweight bread. Stay curious, stay odd, and tune in next time for more secrets from the past.